And a very good, very happy Monday afternoon, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. We're right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Also coming over the podcasting route. Sometimes we're on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio Music Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon. We're on most of those major platforms. You can listen to us any time of the day or night. I'm Chris Pardo, and like I said, coming to you live right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And of course, we're going to be here talking about the big game that's coming up tonight. No doubt about it. Huge game coming up. You've got the final game. It's finally here. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're ready to cash in one way or another. But of course, tonight will finally tell the tale, as they say. So, welcome to the show. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you listen on the weekends, we come on at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday and Sunday. And that's because most of the games on the weekends usually start around 1 or 2 o'clock Eastern Time. So we want to make sure that we are here to give you all the analytical information, the things that you might help you become a better handicapper. Because once again, if you haven't listened to the show, that's what it's all about. We just want to make a better handicapper out of you. We don't tell you who to bet on, how to bet on. That's totally up to you. We try to guide you in certain directions, but it's up to you to make the final decision. And as you know, what we do is we follow the line movement in some particular games, and then we see in which direction the pros are going with their money, and we tell you what direction they're going. So whether you want to bet with them or against them or not pay any attention to it at all, that's totally up to you. But at least we're making that information available to you because, every now and then, like the game tonight, for instance, Baylor and Gonzaga, 4.5 point favorites, a small line. Sometimes you come across games where there are pick'em or there are 1 point difference between the two games and two teams, and you're not sure as to which team you want to bet on. You take a look at it, say the game is on Saturday. You look at it on Thursday, you like Team A against Team B. And then as you start getting to Friday, into Saturday, Team B starts looking a little better. And then by the time you're about game time, you're undecided as to which way to go because now they both look good to you or they don't look good at all. So hopefully with the information we give you, it'll help put you over that barrier and choose which team you're going to play. Again, we follow the pros. We figure they do it for a living. They average somewhere around 60% in the amount of winners that they have, keeping in mind that you have to be at 52.3 in order to break even or start to make money on the plus side. So that's the story about the show. That's what we do, and that's what we're always going to try to do. But like we said, the big game is finally here, and we're going to talk about it, kind of give you some more perspective on it, talk about some trends in the past and what has happened. Maybe that'll help you making a decision as well. But in the meantime, as always, the first thing we do, we look at what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned in most of the major sports. To start with, seeing as how we're talking about NCAA basketball, the women had a tournament going on all this time as well. And Stanford held off Arizona. Another exciting game. 54-53. If you watched it, you could see how really close it was, right down to the wire, almost like that game with UCLA and Gonzaga the other night. So they won the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship. The Cardinal did not cover. Even though they did win the game, they didn't cover. They were 7.5 point favorites in the game, and the total stayed well under the betting total of 126.5. So like we always say, we don't not that interested as to who won or lost. The primary purpose is to find out who covered and who didn't. Meanwhile, over in the NBA, still staying with basketball, the favorites went 5-2 straight up, but they went 4-3 against the spread. The Bulls were 2.5-point underdogs, beat the Nets. The Grizzlies were 3.5-point underdogs against the 76ers, and they pulled upsets, plus the Magic being a 17-point underdog against the Nuggets. Even though the Magic did lose that game, they did cover as far as the line was concerned. In the meantime, the favorites improved to lead 365 to 355 against the spread. That's almost at 51%, so it's almost at that 52.3 area. The unders went 5-2 yesterday, and they retook the lead, 367 to 365. The overs and unders, they've been kind of going back and forth throughout the season. Sometimes the unders were slightly ahead, and some points the overs were ahead. Right now, the unders, because of the other day, are now ahead by 2 games, 367 to 365. Meanwhile, the National Hockey League, the favorites went 5-1 straight up with one upset. The Red Wings are plus 300 against the Lightning. The unders went 3-2-1, and they're now 22-8-2. Over the past 3 days, the unders in hockey went 22-8 with 2 pushes in the past 3 days. They improve up to 292 to 266, which is around 52.3% so far this season. Now, we look at the first period overs and unders. They split yesterday 3-3, but the first period unders are still ahead, 307 to 271. That comes out to 53.1% as far as the first period unders are concerned. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the underdogs were barking loud and clear yesterday, 8-4 straight up to extend their early lead on the season to 26-18 straight up with 2 pick'ems. The biggest upset, the Diamondbacks plus 180 at the Padres. The Orioles plus 150 as they upset the Red Sox for the 3rd straight day. The overs went 6-5-1. They now have a slim lead on the season of 23-22. Of course, the season is young. It just started. There's going to be a lot of change going back and forth as we go through the season. But see, there's where you see the difference in betting. There's betting as far as money line betting is concerned. That's the primary way you bet baseball. And when the underdogs are winning, okay, if you had the Diamondbacks, you laid out 100, you came back with 180. With the Orioles, you laid out 100, you came back with 150. So winning $180 and you're making $100 bets, now you can kind of lose the next game, let's just say, for the sake of argument. You'll be behind $20, but it's not as bad as if you went the other way. So that's the story as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. As far as baseball is concerned, here at the Sports Wagering Zone, we kind of believe in betting on the dogs. And when that comes up, that's what we're going to talk about. Now, in the meantime, we have been, again, but what we do is we follow the pros as far as which games are to be played. The other day, we had 3 games played yesterday. We had Toronto against the Yankees, Atlanta against Philadelphia, and Baltimore against Boston. Now, out of those 3 games, 2 of them were losers. The one game that we did win on was Atlanta against Philadelphia. I mean, Baltimore came in and took 3 straight from Boston. That's unbelievable. So as far as the totals go, though, we've had 9 plays so far this season. We've had 4 winners and 5 losers. We'll keep you up to date on that so that as we start picking some games as to how the pros are going, we're going to keep you up to date as to how well they're doing, how bad they're doing, whatever it is. We're just going to be honest with you, give you the whole story, leave it always up to you as to which way you want to go. Anyway, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to take a close look and see how the line movement, if any, is going on in tonight's championship game between the Baylor Bears and, of course, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. So we'll look at that. We'll see in which direction the pros are going as well. And like we said, hopefully it'll help you in making your decision as well. But in the meantime, let's take our first break. And just a reminder, you're in the sports wagering zone. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on most of the major podcast platforms such as Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, Spreaker. We're on all those and many more as well. Well, like we said, the big game is finally here. March Madness finally comes to an end tonight. The NCAA Tournament Championship game between Baylor and Gonzaga. Now, if you don't like betting college basketball or you're not interested at all, there's 15 Major League Baseball games you can bet on, or 7 NBA games, or 7 National Hockey games as well. So there's other things out there that you can bet on. But I'll tell you, this should be one of the really great games. The game the other day between UCLA and with Gonzaga was absolutely something to watch. Over 13 million people watched that game. That's a record as far as the NCAA is concerned. That is huge, huge following. You know that tonight, that's not only is the number going to be larger, but also what you're going to get is there going to be a lot more money flowing in on this game than on any of the games so far for 2 reasons. Number one, it is the championship game. It's the final game. There are people that kind of stash money away all season long, just waiting for the March Madness. Well, this is it. This is their last opportunity before they go back into hibernating till next season. And also the fact that it should be a lot of people watching, a lot of people betting. It's the only really big action in town. So let's take a look and see how the money is flowing in that game tonight. The game should start somewhere about 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. I know if you live on the East Coast, you live in the Eastern Time Zone, you're going to be up a good part of the evening if it's a really tight, close game, watching it right to the end. But, of course, we do have to take into consideration our friends out there on the left coast, California, and especially up in Seattle, Washington, up in that particular area, because that is where Gonzaga comes from. So got to keep them people happy watching as well. But the ratings will go through the roof. The amount of money that's going to come in is just going to be unbelievable. So let's take a look at it and let's see how the money is flowing. The bettors, you guys are in for a really treat because this title game is a big showtime. You got far and away the 2 best teams in college basketball this season. We talked about it Everybody talked about it about halfway through the season when it kind of looked like it was going to be Baylor and Gonzaga. And then Baylor lost a couple of games near the end of the season there, kind of tainted them a little bit. But everybody in the back of their minds kind of figured in the end, it's going to be Gonzaga and Baylor. Baylor's total record for last season was 27-2, and this is the first national title game for the Bears since 1948. They've beaten 16 seed Hartford this time, 79-59. They beat Wisconsin, the number 9 seed, 76-63. They beat Villanova, the number 5 seed, 62-51. They beat Arkansas, the number 3 seed, 81-72. And then they came in and took on the number 2 seed, Houston Cougars, and beat them 78-59. Now, Baylor has been favored in every game of the tournament so far, and they have gone 4-1 against the spread. A good betting team throughout the tournament. Now they face their biggest, and I would have to say, their stiffest test of the program so far. Gonzaga, who was 31-0 this past season, they're chasing immortality. They're looking to become the very first undefeated championship team all the way back to the 75-76 season. The Indiana Hoosiers with Bobby Knight as the coach. Isn't it interesting? The game is being played in Indianapolis. It's just a couple of miles away from the Indiana University College Gymnasium where they played their games. So it's kind of fitting. You know, there's always a story to things. That's kind of like a side story to it. It could possibly take place in Indiana, just miles away from where it took place, 1975-1976 season. Now, the Zags have beaten 16 seed Norfolk State, 98-55. Oklahoma, the number 8 seed, gave them a little bit of a problem for a while, though they turned out beating them 87-71. Creighton, the number 5 seed, they beat 83-65. They crushed USC, the number 6 seed, 85-66. And then the 11th seed, UCLA Bruins, gave them a little problem, a little scare. 93-90 was the final score on that buzzer game. Wow, that shot came off unbelievable. Gonzaga has 4-1 against the spread as well in the tournament, but they lay double-digit spreads in every game. This is the first game in the tournament where they are not at double digits as far as betting is concerned. So we just talked about the past. Let's see what's happening now. The line opened with Gonzaga a 5-point favorite. The public is kind of split down the middle. They don't know whether to take the points or whether to lay them. Because, after all, Baylor, they dominated Houston, while Gonzaga, on the other hand, they just barely got by UCLA. Now, we've seen Gonzaga fall from being a 5 to a 4.5 point favorite. And some of the books are even juicing up the Baylor at 4.5 to being a minus 115 on the money line. Usually when the juice starts going up, it gets to a certain point and it signals a possibility that then the number will drop down to 4. Now, this also means that the pro money has been grabbing the points with Baylor. Now, Ken Pom, we all know who he is, has Gonzaga winning by 4 points, which provides some actionable value on Baylor plus the hook. Now, short dogs, these are dogs that are 5 points or less, are 13-8 against the spread in this tournament, and that's at 62%. Now, the dogs in which the line stays the same or falls in their direction are 20-14 or at 59%. Baylor also has value because they're a slow pace dog. They're 25-21 against the spread, 54%. Okay, Baylor is plus 175 on the money line. Gonzaga is a minus 200. So it appears at 4.5 or even 5, that's when the pros came in and took Baylor and the points. Now that it's down to 4.5, down to maybe 4, you may want to start thinking about the more and more of them maybe going over in the other direction to cover what happened on the first side. So the total, it opened at 160. Now, as you first take a look at it, it looks like an easy over for Baylor because they average almost 83 points per game. Gonzaga leads the nation with almost 92 points per game. But you know what? Despite a majority of the tickets that are coming in and they're taking the over, we've seen the line kind of drip down to 159.5 from 160. The unders are 37 and 26 in the tournament. That's at 59%. Now, if the total is 140 or higher, the under is 17 and 10 or 63%. If the total stays the same, or if it drops like it already has a little bit, the under is at 61%. So if the total is 150 or higher, the under is 6 and 2 or 75%. The over is 3 and 2 in Baylor games in this tournament. The under is 3 and 2 in the Gonzaga game. So that's the story on those two situations. That's kind of a rundown. Again, before we go off the air, we're going to take a close look and see what the latest odds are, bring you up to date once again as to which direction the pros are going. But we're going to take our second break, and when we come back, we can look at the updated numbers for the most outstanding players odds, courtesy of BetMGM. So we'll be back into the sports wagering zone in about, say, a minute and a half. Minute and a half, somewhere in that time period. We never usually go much further than that. So we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, also on most of your major podcast platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Apple. We're on all those as well. So thank you very much for listening. Just to let you know, we appreciate you listening to the show, and we hope you're enjoying the show as well. But of course, if you have any comments, if you think you would like to think there's some changes should be made. Maybe we talk too much about some things, maybe not enough about something else. So if that's the case, by all means, just send us an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. The Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. Com. After all, we've been doing this show for a few years now, and we kind of, you kind of settle into a bubble. You figure everything is going fine. You're picking up more listeners as you're going along. Things seem to be going smoothly, but there's always some little ripple somewhere. Hopefully that one of you guys out there, if you think of it that way, give us a little message. Let us know what it is. We'll see what we can do about making listening to the Sports Wagering Zone a more pleasurable experience, but also a more profitable experience as well. So before we go into talking about the odds on the most valuable player in this particular tournament, let's take a quick look at the odds board right now. And again, we're talking about Las Vegas odds boards. Gonzaga is a 4.5-point favorite at most of the houses. Two houses are different, and they're like far apart. The Golden Nugget is at 4. Gonzaga being a 4-point favorite. So if it's Gonzaga that you like, that's the place you'd want to bet if you're living in Las Vegas. If you look at the bet on Baylor, the place to go is to Win, because Win is at 5. So this way you have 5 points sitting in your bucket as opposed to 4 or even 4.5. But the other houses, South Point, Westgate, Caesars, Mirage, all these are all at 4.5. So you do have a little change. That's why we always tell you it's most important that you deal with more than one house. Okay. If for some reason, let's say you're living in Las Vegas and the house that you're dealing with is Win. All right. But in this case, you happen to like Gonzaga in this game. Well, you're laying 5 points. Whereas if you were at the Golden Nugget, if you had that on your list also, you'd have Gonzaga only giving up 4 points, Or conversely, if you like Baylor, then you do want to be on Win. You don't want to be on Golden Nugget, for instance. So that's why it's very important. It's a good idea. Try to pick up as many houses that you can deal with as possible. Now, that's the story there. We'll keep an eye on those odds before we go off the air. But in the meantime, this is the updated version for Most Outstanding Player Award. And these are the odds out of BetMGM. Timmy is at the top. He's at minus 120 on the money line. Suggs is now in the number 2 position. He got there yesterday, obviously, because of the great game he had the day before. Suggs is at plus 115. So if you lay 100, you're going to win 115. For Timmy, you have to lay 120 to win 100 because he's on the minus side. Mitchell's at plus 400. Butler's at plus 800. Ayayi is at plus 1,600. Kispert, who was really up there in the beginning as this tournament started and it started moving along, Kispert was one of the top 2 or 3, dropped down now to being a plus 2,000. So he is a long shot along with Teague at 2,000. So if you still kind of feel maybe Kispert could be the guy, okay, maybe he has an outstanding game tonight, he may very well move on up and get the award as most outstanding player. Well, here you're laying 100. If you win, you're going to be getting 2,000. So that's the story there. Timmy is the favorite. You got to lay 120 to make 100. Suggs is 115 on the plus side, as long as Mitchell at 400, Butler at 800. So those are the top ones right at the moment. But keep an eye on them. And if you like betting those prop bets, that's one of those situations that you might want to really consider and think about. In the meantime, let's take our final break. And when we do come back, have some final thoughts and trends as how they've been going over the past 15 to 20 years, kind of give you some help in that direction as well. What do they mean? Well, some people look at trends and they say, well, hey, that's the way it's been. I guess it's going to keep on going. And there's other people that say, hey, every season, every game is an individual game. It's an individual season. What's happened in the past has nothing to do with it. Either way, we're going to let you know what it is. And as always, let you decide whether or not you want to pay any attention to it. So let's take our final break, and we'll be back into the zone in 60 seconds. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Ready here live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Now, here's some thoughts about this game we're going to be watching tonight. You know, it's kind of fitting and it's kind of rare that you get the two of the best teams in college basketball that actually going to play against each other in a final game of the season. It doesn't happen that often, very rare. Gonzaga and Baylor, you got to look at it and say, they really deserve this opportunity because if you remember last year, even though there was no tournament last season, each one of those teams was projected to be a number one seed. But of course, because of COVID, it never happened. Now, Baylor in a best of 7 series, I would probably think I would take the Zags in 7. But if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably pick Gonzaga to win this game. Now, Mark Few, he's the coach of Gonzaga. He may have one of the best teams of all time. But his team's undefeated season was the Johnny Juzang charge away from ending. Remember that charge with time running out? Johnny Juzang got called on a charge, and that ended that particular game for them at that point in time. Game went into overtime, and that's when they lost. And if not for Jalen Suggs' miracle shot, who knows? Gonzaga could still be playing right now. Unlike the Bruins over at UCLA, Baylor doesn't just believe that it can beat Gonzaga. The Bears believe they're better than Gonzaga. They have a future first-round pick. They, too, are deep, brilliant on both ends of the floor. They've been dominating for the past 2 seasons. And it wasn't long ago that Gonzaga and Baylor were viewed as equals, as being the same. It was, Carly, a little over a year or a month ago that both were chasing that first perfect season since 1976. But a 3-week COVID-related pause prevented Baylor from sustaining the momentum that they had. So they lost 2 games as Gonzaga continued on and they remained undefeated. So if you turn the circumstances around, you can ask yourself what each team's record would be if it didn't happen. Switch their conferences. Ask yourself which team would be undefeated. In 5 tournament games, Baylor has played its way back to its peak, and coming into the game tonight off a flawless blowout of the number 2 seed Houston Cougars. Now, for the first time this season, the Bears are going to be an underdog in a game. It's an edge they don't need, but they'll happily embrace as well. As UCLA demonstrated in that incredible game the other night, Gonzaga will only be beaten by a team that lights up the scoreboard, because Baylor, the best 3-point shooting team in the nation, does come under that category and fits that bill. Now, another class that's going to take place tonight. It's easy to see it as either a juggernaut winning a game 2 years in the making, and it's hard in many instances to pass up those free points. It's just something that you might want to take a closer look at because, when you're looking at points in a game that's this tight, Gonzaga may wind up winning, but as far as betting is concerned, it wouldn't be surprising if Baylor covers the spread. So we'll see how that works out as well. Meanwhile, as far as trends are concerned, in title games, championship game favorites who are favored 3 points or more, in this instance, Gonzaga is, they're 12-2 straight up, and they're 11-3 against the spread. That's almost 79%. On the other hand, if they're favored by 2.5 or less, they're even 4-4 against the spread. And that goes all the way back to 1998, by the way. Now, in this 2021 game, there's going to be a favorite of 3 points or more. It kind of looks that way right now. Good chance the better team wins, but there's a good chance that the other team will probably cover. Now, only once in the past 20 years did the championship winning team not cover the spread. And that was when Duke played against Butler all the way back in 2010. So don't try to sneak in an underdog cover if you don't think that they can win outright. That's for sure. So we're going to kind of take a look at that as well. So it's up to you. If you think that the favorites have a shot here, you're going to be laying 4.5, 4, maybe 5 points. It all depends on which house you're dealing with. Okay. So yeah, there's a good possibility Gonzaga will more than likely win the game. On the other hand, it's a very good possibility that Baylor will cover the spread as well. But we leave that up to you. The pros started out on Baylor when they got 5 points. 4.5, they still came in because it dropped to 4 in some houses. So you know that it was that kind of money that made that kind of a move. So it looked like the pros are in on Baylor at 5, 4.5. So if you can get that kind of number, more than likely that's the place to go. However, if you don't get that kind of a number, you're going to go down a little lower. Maybe you get 4. It might not be a bad idea to go along and go with the winning team, Gonzaga, in this situation. So thanks again for listening. Watch the game tonight. It should be very exciting, whichever way you go, whether you bet the over, the under, the team, or whatever. I certainly hope you do very, very well. We always hope that our listeners make money. That's the whole idea. So thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Everybody will be deconstructing this game all day long on sports radio tomorrow. And we'll see. We won't go into any detail about that. We'll just see what the score was and kind of give a little touch into it as to what could have been or what has been, and we'll kind of take it from there. So once again, thanks for listening. I'm Chris Pardo. We've been coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll be back again tomorrow, 4 p.m. And until then, watch the game tonight. Trust me, it's probably going to be a really great game to watch, a game you might be able to be talking to your kids and your grandkids about in years to come. Goodbye, everybody.